Hello, this is Alistair Freeland, and with me is Dr. Alexis Ceecee Britten-Jones, who is a researcher at the Department of Optometry and Vision Sciences at the University of Melbourne. Ceecee, thank you so much for taking part in this webcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Alistair. It's a pleasure.
Today we will be discussing omega-3 fatty acids and eye health. And maybe my first question to you is, why is it important for us to consume omega-3 fatty acids for our ocular health?
What we know about omega-3 fatty acids is that they are what we considered essential fatty acids. So this means that for humans, we can't produce them in our body, so they must be derived from the foods that we eat or from supplementation. And in terms of the specific types of omega-3 fatty acids, there's two main types of omega-3 fatty acids. So the short chain form, or ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, is mostly derived from plant sources, so chia seeds, plant oils, and whereas the long chain omega-3 fatty acids, the DHA and EPA, so that's docosahexaenoic acid and eicosapentaenoic acid, long words, they are mostly derived from marine sources, so generally from fatty fish and also other types of seafood. What we do know in humans is that most of the benefits that are reported with omega-3 fatty acids are associated with the long chain form, so the types that we get from fatty fish and seafoods. So when we do eat omega-3 fatty acids, we're still currently not sure how well eating the short chain forms actually converts the long chain forms. So what we do know is that the best method for actually obtaining adequate omega-3 fatty acids in our body is through directly eating foods that contain oily fish or other types of seafood. Generally, the recommended daily long-chain omega-3 fatty acid intake is about 500 milligrams per day. So that's about 2 servings, so about 100 and 150 grams each, but 2 servings of fatty fish per week. So we do know that oily fish like salmon or mackerel generally contains high omega-3 fatty acid concentrations than leaner fish, so cod, snapper, whiting. Another thing that's really important to consider with regard to omega-3 fatty acids is that they're not the only type of essential fatty acid. So we do have another type that's called omega-6 fatty acids. So long-chain omega-6 fatty acids, arachidonic acid, is mostly found in animal products, so meats, dairy, eggs. Now, omega-6 fatty acids in most Western diets is actually the predominant type of fatty acids that's present in our foods. And that's just because it's quite high in processed foods and meats and dairies, like I've said. But in the body, when we do eat both types of fatty acids, both omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are incorporated into our cells, and they actually facilitate several body processes. But the key is both omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, they compete for the same enzymes. These enzymes then allow them to then produce circulating lipid mediators. So one key difference between them is that whereas omega-3 fatty acids biases the production of anti-inflammatory mediators, omega-6 fatty acids tend to produce mediators that are pro-inflammatory. So they really have very much opposing effects in our body. So what's actually really important is that in our diet, we've got to get a really good balance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid ratio to then really balance out our systemic inflammation processes and modulate immunity. So in Western diets, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in general Western diets is thought to be 15:3, which is very high, whereas an ideal ratio is considered to be 15:1, whereas the ideal ratio is considered to be 4:1. So 4 times of omega-6 fatty acid to 1 time of omega-3 fatty acids. So rather than just thinking about omega-3 fatty acids still, really is the balance of the 2 types of fatty acids that's also very important in our body to maintain systemic processes and immunity and such.
And when you talk about the whole food omega-3 and you compare those to the benefits of omega-3 supplements,
so if we think about foods that we take from supplementation, so really in coral capsules versus food, nutrients that we get from diet, the main difference really between the two types, in any supplementation, particularly omega-3s, is that supplements with omega-3 fatty acids contain only omega-3 fatty acids, so in the capsule. albeit also in much higher doses. Whereas the fatty acids that we get from food are really consumed, in synergy with the other nutrients and vitamins that are present in the food, so in fish and in vegetables, which means that the nutrients that we get from food has synergistic interactions. So the omega-3 fatty acids also come with all the other nutrients and vitamins that we eat from food, and that is actually potentially going to make a difference in terms of our general health. So one thing that's really important to think about is how much omega-3 fatty acids do we get from our usual diet, so from the foods that we eat every day. So there's several ways that a person can do this. So there are a lot of dietary questionnaires online that's available, very simple dietary questionnaires that quantifies, how much food you've eaten in the last few days, how many times a week do you eat fish, what different types of fish do we eat. I have actually published one, we called it the CODS. Very proud of that name, but really just try and simply quantify how much omega-3 fatty acids do you get from the foods that you eat. And also you can also test this, your omega-3 fatty acid levels using some blood tests. So they are special blood tests that only specifically test for omega-3 fatty acids, but it's like a little pinprick blood test that tests for capillary blood, and there are commercially available kits. So with the blood test, what they generally test is a value called the omega-3 index. And the omega-3 index is really a quantification of the total long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, or DHA and EPA, the two types that's present in your blood. Why the omega-3 index, I guess, is important is that when this value is determined from commercially available tests or from the blood tests, and there is a metric. So an omega-3 index of 8 is considered beneficial for general health, whereas an omega-3 index of 4 or under, people with that are considered at slightly higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So that's another way of assessing systemic omega-3 fatty acids. But yeah, look, considering the main difference between food and supplement is really the key is think about how much you do get from your normal food. And then on top of that, consider whether or not there is any value in adding in omega-3 supplements. And whether or not you do also depends on whether or not it's just for improving general health or if it's for a particular condition that you may want to be supplemented for. And when there is supplements, one should also then also consider the dosage or the form of the omega-3 supplements that might be the most suitable for the purpose.
And if we consider age-related macular degeneration and dry eye disease, topics that you have looked at specifically, what supplementation strategies maybe could be recommended to people who do want to improve their ocular health?
Both age-related macular degeneration and dry eye disease, they're really just two main eye conditions that increasing systemic omega-3 fatty acids have really shown to provide benefits for. But they are, very, very different eye conditions with very, very disease mechanisms. So I think I'll discuss them individually. So with age-related macular degeneration, so really epidemiology studies have really shown that higher dietary intake of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically from food sources. So eating foods that are high in EPA and DHA or the marine-based long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, that's been associated with a lower risk of developing early-stage age-related macular degeneration. And also, it has also been associated with reducing the progression to a later stage and sight-threatening forms of the disease for people who already have age-related macular degeneration. And that's also, different studies have also shown that fish intake for at least twice a week it provides a benefit, both in people with early and late-stage disease. Not only, specific omega-3 fatty acid intake, other different epidemiology studies have also investigated the association between different diets or dietary patterns with age-related macular degeneration. So one example is the Mediterranean diet, and that's characterized by a very high consumption of fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains, and fish. And lower consumption of dairy and red meat. And that specific type of diet, which is generally richer in omega-3 fatty acids, is also associated with a reduced risk of developing late-stage disease. So in terms of eating omega-3 fatty acids for AMD, really you have to consider the stage of disease, then find out the specific recommendation that's for that stage. But really interestingly, in contrast to all of the evidence for the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids from diet, a lot of really large clinical trials and large studies have actually shown that dietary supplementation with omega-3 fatty acid oral supplements have not shown to provide any benefits in age-related macular degeneration. So they've really shown to provide no benefit in both preventing or slowing down the progression of disease in people with age-related macular degeneration. So at this point, if you've got age-related macular degeneration, the evidence says that, you could still eat omega-3 fatty acids supplements for general health, but it's not shown to really provide any benefit specifically in terms of slowing the progression of disease, whereas omega-3 fatty acids derived from diet can. In dry eye disease, the mechanisms are slightly different in terms of how omega-3 fatty acids are considered to provide benefit. So in dry eye disease, the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids are hypothesized to really relate to the anti-inflammatory effects and of the downstream mediators produced by omega-3s. So in dry eye disease, one thing that we know that's really important is the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. It's not just really eating omega-3 fatty acids, but how much omega-3 fatty acids are you getting in relation to omega-6 fatty acids. So a really large study done in the USA called the US Women's Health Study. That study showed that women with an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 15:1, so a poorer ratio, with 2.5 times more likely to have dry eye disease than people with the optimum ratio of 4:1. So that's really evidence for where that ratio is really, really important. With regard to, I guess, specifically omega-3 supplementation in dry eye disease, of course, eating omega-3 supplements is going to raise your omega-3 profile and get that balance back between your omega-3 and omega-6 ratio. But being aware that with omega-3 fatty acid supplementation in dry eye disease, there's not really been any consensus, at least up to this point, on the optimal dosage or the form of omega-3 fatty acid supplements that really is shown to provide the most benefit in people with dry eye disease. So, and that's just because all the clinical trials that have been done have actually shown some conflicting findings. So whereas some key trials have shown that a moderate dose, so about 1,500 milligrams a day is what we consider a moderate dose of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, may improve signs of dry eye disease. Another large study in high dose of omega-3 fatty acid actually showed that it didn't provide any more benefit than a placebo or olive oil supplement. So in terms of omega-3 fatty acids and dry eye disease supplements, they're really, at the moment for us, there needs to be more research on, I guess, understanding what specific patient populations might preferentially benefit from having that dietary enhancement. So is it the people who are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids from their usual diet who might get the most benefit from supplementation? Is it people with certain types of dry eye disease or certain forms of the condition? So that's a question that's still yet to be answered.
So there's obviously findings from research that are potentially beneficial for people with age-related macular degeneration and dry eye disease. Does the message from science, does it reach patients?
Yeah, so I guess that's when this is when that question really relates to what we did in our study. So in our study, we surveyed over 200 optometrists, so they're primary eye care practitioners that were based in Australia and New Zealand. So in this survey, what we aim to find out is really, well, whether or not optometrists make any recommendations relating to diet and what specific recommendations do they make to their patients with age-related macular degeneration and dry eye disease with regard to omega-3 fatty acids, so both from food and from supplementation. One key finding from the survey that we did is that we found that optometrists do actually routinely make clinical recommendations about diet and omega-3 fatty acids to their patients. And this really shows that in primary eye care, primary eye care practitioners are keen to provide guidance on diet to their patients. And there's a lot of opportunity to integrate appropriate dietary recommendations to patients in routine eye care practice. And that's a really important finding because it really shows that, there is that room to improve clinical education and care and really to optimize the eye care that we're giving to patients because nutrition is such a key component of improving general health. Another interesting finding from the studies that we'd found that about 4 in 5, so about 80%, so 4 in 5 optometrists indicated that they do recommend to their patients to consume omega-3 fatty acids to improve their eye health. So most of these optometrists indicated that they did so for dry eye disease. And that's not unusual, because with dry eye disease, I guess the evidence is a little bit clearer, and there's not a lot of, there's no distinction between that food and supplementation, at least as far as we understand at the time, at the moment. But what we did find in our survey is that we really think that there could be further education that could target then optometrist knowledge on the differences in the evidence for the whole food versus supplement sources of omega-3 fatty acids in age-related macular degeneration. And that's the differences that I just spoke about. So making sure that eye care practitioners understand that, whereas food-based omega-3 fatty acids are known to confer benefit in age-related macular degeneration, supplementation isn't. And that's a distinction that just wasn't shown clearly in that survey that we did. So another key thing that we did find in our survey that could, potentially be integrated into future education is that we think that there could be opportunity to provide further education on the differences between long and short chain omega-3 fatty acids. So understand what's derived from plants, what's derived from marine sources or from meats, and what the difference is in terms of biological effect, so that clinicians are aware of the difference. And also then what is in the bottle of omega-3 fatty acid supplements that you're picking up from the supermarket or from the pharmacy or from the chemist. So for patients to pick up a bottle, it's not enough, I guess, to recommend a brand or a type, or even just say omega-3 fatty acids. When you pick up a bottle, even if it says 2,000 milligrams on the bottle, you may only get 500 milligrams of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids actually in each supplement. So it's important that we then educate optometrists, and therefore then for them to educate patients on what to look for on the bottle. So what are the different components of omega-3 fatty acids you're looking for when you're looking at them, and then what are the dosages and the forms that could then provide benefit for eye health.
That's great. Ceecee, many thanks for taking the time for this webcast today. And with all your further research, I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.